All right, guys, I have a bunch of projects in the works that are just not going to be done in time for February, but I want to put something out this month. So I'm just going to talk to you about my Spider Foes roster. I've been playing it a whole bunch. I really like Spider Foes. They're one of my two off factions when I'm not talking about Web Warriors nearly constantly. So let's just talk about this roster, and I'm going to lay out the roster and talk about my overall philosophy as to why I'm playing it. So I found that spider foes are just a big pile of kind of bruisery idiots. When I say bruiser, I mean like a damage dealer, but a damage dealer that's not like highest DPS possible, but more like can stay in the fight a long time, can sustain themselves. Usually big hit point sacks with slightly less damaging abilities compared to like glass cannons who have a lot of damage. So, like an example, the other side would be like Scarlet Witch, who has a lot of damage and is pretty fragile and expensive. Whereas you look at something like Venom or Green Goblin, who are just like a ton of hit points that hit moderately hard and have a lot of like gimmicks to keep themselves alive. So to start it off, I'm going with Green Goblin. Green Goblin was part of the errata pass, and I think they've improved him a lot. The extra die on the builder helps him build power, which gives him access to the rest of his kit. Combine that with the reworked Oscorp weaponry. Oscorp weaponry has always been a bananas strong effect. The problem was it was expensive, and now it's literally free. So my philosophy when using Oscorp weaponry is the second I break armor. So like if I have more hits than you have blocks, I spend it right away. I spend it at the first opportunity. A lot of people try to spend it just on builders to give them more power, but I actually just find that just guaranteeing that I get to use it every single activation is just the best way to go. So after Green Goblin, I'm playing Doc Ock from the core set. I know Doc Ock's not super popular. I'm playing Doc Ock here for two reasons. I have a really incredible conversion that I'm really proud of Doc Ock, where I made her female from Into the Spider Verse, which is my favorite comic book movie. But also, I think a big reason to be playing Spider Foes is Well Laid Plans. Well Laid Plans is just an incredibly strong effect. It's probably overcosted by one or two power, but it's incredibly strong. Like, just your opponent drops 70% of their extracts immediately, and sometimes it can just be all of their extracts. And it does chip damage on top, and a lot of Spider Foes just incidentally do chip damage. And we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get farther down the list. But I like Doc Ock a lot here. Um, I think I think she's just really underrated in general. Uh, Play Venom. You know that I'm a Web Warriors player. I love Venom. I think Venom is maybe the most underrated model in the game, and I think a lot of people know that Venom's good. But just really good ways to use the power. Can spend the leadership on your opponent's turn when he snacks back, so Venom's even more dangerous on the counterattack than he is in other lists, which is really nice. He is 13 hit points for just 4 points, which is like one of the best rates. Like it really only goes up to like 14 hit points for 4 threat. So Venom being in there, and then if he gets a single snack back, he's way more hit points than that. Also uses some of their tactics cards really well, and I love Venom. He is the core of my roster. Start with Green Goblin, Venom, and then I build from there. Next up, I have the other two threes that are in faction, which are Lizard and Mysterio. Lizard, not a ton to talk about here. He's just really hard to kill. Like he's very popular for a lot of reasons. Um, I think he's like the most boring one. I wish that Lizard was like a more interesting model, but he's just rock solid and good. He's just a block of stats that are hard to kill. It's 11 hit points and you reduce damage by one, and he heals one every turn. So usually you're looking at like a 13 hit point model minimum over the course of the game, and it can just really be tough to put the guy down. And then the leadership helps fix his 4-die builder, which is his biggest problem. And I just like we have a lot of ways to just make Lizard useful. Mysterio's probably my favorite model in the whole game. I think Mysterio's like just like Kit interacts in a really interesting way, and I think he has a lot of secret synergies within Spider Foes. Like he's one of my favorite models to play, Neo Recombinator. Even though he has no way to naturally heal himself, it's kind of like the hit points are hidden because he can be up in it and still be like so safe. Um, I only really play Mysterio on the center scenarios. I really struggle to get the most out of him. On occasion, I will play him on Infinity Formula, but if I play him on Infinity Formula, I'm definitely not bringing his card. And then anytime we're in like a flip scenario situation, like Mysterio is just the saddest boy alive. I'm playing Kingpin here. Kingpin is probably a little bit of a holdover from when the list was combined with Criminal Syndicate, but I like Kingpin overall on the list, especially on Intrusions. Like he's just incredibly hard to kill. I like him at big points where I have to get another Spider Foe body in there, and like his abilities are just really efficient. The stagger can like reduce my opponent's output, making me appear even more tanky. He himself is really hard to kill, even when you're not in his leadership. All right, and then we get into our splash characters. I'm splashing two twos, Bullseye and Nebula. I think these are the two best damage twos, and they also just Nebula is a lot of hit points for a two. Now she doesn't count towards scoring, but Nebula is, I think, arguably the most deadly in Spider Foes because she already brings her rerolls. So stacking more rerolls on top with like Guardians or something doesn't super help. Web Warriors can unlock her skulls, but that's still like that's not what Web Warriors want to do. But in foes, like giving her like a chance to like pierce can mean she just kills stuff that she has no business killing. Bullseye he's really cute in the list. So we need a back point setter. We don't inherently have one. Like you can play Craven, but Craven's not very good. And he's like if he's doing the like point sitting, coming up, stabbing you, walking back, he's not really doing you're not really getting his threat worth. He needs to be like caging the beast and stuff like that. And he's just kind of fragile and we're playing just a bunch of big beef idiots. So I think Bullseye does this pretty well. He's pretty safe. He has a lot of like little chip damage. He's also just really strong into a lot of stuff that's popular right now. Like Bullseye's just really strong into like Black Panther and other models that like are hard to put attack damage on, and like when your floor is just you're going to take 2 damage from this character. I like that a lot. He's kind of evasive like Toad. I like Bullseye a lot. And also where I think that like the Bullseye Nebula, the reason I'm playing 2/2s is when you end up on like 15 points, you can put just like a really scary list on the table where you play Green Goblin, Venom, one of the 3s. So if it's like Gamma, I would probably play Mysterio. But if it's a wider scenario, you can play Lizard. And then, so that's 11 points. And then you combo it with Bullseye and Nebula. And it's just a lot of damage and a lot of hit points at a very small point level. And I like it a lot. Baron Zemo. I've settled on Baron Zemo as my support here. I was playing Baron Mordo for a long time because the foes have a lot of ways to like make the Baron Mordo extra dice feel not that bad. Like putting the damage on Green Goblin means that you can get to like people don't want to attack Green Goblin because they don't want to flip him and have him like just murder them. Venom can heal off of it, so like doing a We Are Venom and spending for Baron Mordo and being like, oh, there's a 9 dice attack, I don't care that I'm taking 1, and then you heal it all back anyway. Kingpin can use the power that he just generated off the Mordo attack to inure to pain the Mordo attack, which I think is really cool. Lizard obviously can heal during it, but ultimately I just like you would get like 3 of them a game, and while Mordo does do quite a bit from range and like can back points it and stuff, I just wasn't getting enough out of it. And then I've moved to kind of some more center scenarios within my foes, and Zemo has just like there's a reason this guy's been played as one of the most played models since the core set. The reroll is incredibly good, and also like Counter-Strike is just like weirdly good in foes. Like foes just have all this little chip damage where like you charge into my lines, it's like, okay, Green Goblin trick or treats you, Mysterio can tricks and traps you, and then if you attack Venom or Zemo or Bullseye, you're looking at potentially more damage. So like, I don't know, Counter Strike has been like weirdly good for me. Where like all of a sudden, like if I chip down a character, like if I just put 3 damage on a character with like a pretty mediocre activation, and then that character's like, okay, well I'm going to activate him so I don't lose this activation. They can look at like having to walk into like a bunch of landmines in order to get anything out of their character. So I thought that synergy's been pretty fun. And then Zemo can obviously like audible to, like running objectives. He has some pretty good in-out play, either charge in and then walk back out, or um, charge in with a steel rush and come back out. I like Zemo a lot, and obviously Oscorp weaponry again. Like he has his own access to a lot of rerolls, so like stacking more rerolls doesn't help him, but the Oscorp leadership does because it rerolls opponents' dice and it affects a different thing. Finally, I have the latest edition. I only have one game with Ghost Rider so far, but again, it fits this kind of theme that we're going for here, where like Ghost Rider is at the 5 threat or at 5 threat is tied for second most hit points at that cost, losing only to Juggernaut, who has one more. Um, and just like he is really hard to kill. Just kind of in general, just a lot of hit points in general, and then you can play deal with the devil. So like, oh, even if you kill him, you'd be like, okay, I'll kill Bullseye or Nebula or even my 3 pointers, right, to bring him back. He brings Incinerate and Hex, which help my low cost builders do better. And he's just kind of a big jerk. And like my huge hit point pools means that he gets the extra points. And then he also has the random chip damage in there with like, oh, you roll a bunch of crits, like I can just kill you on the way in. So I like Ghost Rider a lot. Uh, I'm not sure if this should be some other piece, but I'm having fun with Ghost Rider at the moment. So let's talk about my tactics cards. I have Brace and Medpack as my 2 tactics cards. Medpack is just like, feels like the default tactics card here, and I think it's really good, especially in foes, because we have Neocombinator, so, or Neogenic recombinator, or whatever it's called, which is like you can kind of play 2 Medpacks, especially with all the healing access. Um, And then I find that I was playing field dressing instead of brace, but I find that you're still like you have so much good stuff to do with your power in foes. Like every foe can turn their power into really good damage or into a really powerful effect. And having 4 power just sitting around that you're not using is pretty uncommon. Whereas the foes are a lot of size 3s and a lot of big boys, and so playing brace is really useful. We've already talked about Neo Combinator a bunch, but I'm playing that here. Obviously, it's really good for Lizard to play it, really good for Venom to play it, really good for Mysterio to play it, which is less obvious. It is locked to foes, so you have to look at how many foes you're playing. I typically only play like 1 or 2 non-foes because I'm never really more than 6 wide. So look at how many foes you're playing and look at whether the non-foes are frontliners. I haven't played it with Ghost Rider yet because Ghost Rider can't benefit from it, and this is usually the SWAT where Deal with the Devil comes in. Sinister Traps. This is a big reason why you should be playing foes. Sinister Traps is a nuts card. How it can change a lot of players' turn 1 plans is really strong. You have to be really careful that you don't end up in it. I don't even play it against Web Warriors. I think it's really, really easy for Web Warriors who just put you in it. And then, like, they get all the benefits and you just play down a tactics card. So I think you should be playing Sinister Traps nearly every game, but if you're worried about a team that's going to have a lot more movement tricks than you got to be really careful playing this card. Lethal Protector. I play this almost never. This is for the Black Order matchup largely. Just usually to protect Goblin, but it can be to protect kind of anything. It's fine. Maybe there's an argument that this should be sacrifice, and I want to experiment with that. But right now, it's Lethal Protector because this is my off action, so I'm playing kind of more fun stuff than I should. Speaking of fun stuff, the Grand Illusion. The Grand Illusion has come in and out of this roster a bunch of times. Like the first 6 times I played this card, it did nothing for me. Like the card functionally did nothing. Like the person just rolled no crits, or they were able to like back when Enchantress was everywhere, were able to just bow Mysterio out of range of stuff. But the Grand Illusion is the best when you can open a turn with it and activate not Mysterio. It's also really good when you're playing center objectives. So that's when you look for Grand Illusion type situations. Um, I, the card is mathematically very strong. I have just had a rough time with it. But the last time I played it, like it turned like 7 crits into skulls. So I don't know. You win some, you lose some. Next, we got Well-Laid Plans. Well-Laid Plans is like the other big reason in my mind to be playing Spider Foes. I think it is a big reason why Doc Ock is in my roster. I think the effect is super strong. I think when you combine it with auto damaging effects like Intrusions or Struggle for the Cube, that like you can just like accidentally daze a whole bunch of people, or you can play it as a damage card instead of as a like make them drop extracts. Like yeah, they'll drop their extracts, but you can also just like kill a whole bunch of people. Um, I don't know. I think the effect's really good. I think it's just overcosted by a little bit. But if you're on Infinity Formula, it becomes pretty easy to play. So, just kind of feel it out there. Deal with the Devil. I think it's pretty mandatory when you're playing Ghost Rider to put Deal with the Devil on the board. It wildly affects how people can play against Ghost Rider. If you're struggling against a Ghost Rider and they're playing Deal with the Devil, the best way to beat Ghost Rider is to very carefully pick the turn you daze him. Right? Rob him of an activation on a turn where you daze him, and otherwise ignore him. I'm playing Disarm. Disarm, this is the card that's probably the least certain. I just think of it as like I'm just playing some damage reduction with my huge hit point pools and my like 4 physical defense, like almost across the board. I think it's pretty good to just like kind of turn off a middling character. Like any 5-die strike hates Disarm. It wildly changes how strong they are. And then I'm playing Blind Obsession. This might be a little too like cute, but man, it's really dumb on Doc Ock and Baron Zemo. Like, it's really, really stupid on those characters. The characters that just get a lot from extra dice with the increased wilds and the reroll all. Again, just like always with Blind Obsession, you want to try to play it either on a wing where it's like you have a one-on-one situation and you can tip it, because Zemo can beat some 4s if he's blind obsessed with that 4. But a lot of these characters will die super fast if they're attacked by their not blind obsession target. The other way to do it is you use it at an opening of a turn to try to KO a character or guarantee a KO, so that way you can immediately turn its bad effects off. Scenarios. For secures, I am playing Intrusions, Scoundrels, and Infinity Formula. So Infinity Formula is pretty obvious. We are playing a faction that can do tons of good stuff with power, that is balanced around the fact that they have kind of low dice strikes, making it hard for them to get power. Infinity Formula, perfect setup for us. The B setup is fine for us. It's not our favorite, but it's pretty good. Intrusions, Chewy89 turned me onto this, who's a big Spider-Foes player. I think he made top 8 at LVO. He has his own YouTube channel. Should check him out. He plays Spider-Foes very differently from me, but he turned me on to Intrusions. And I think Intrusions is really, really good. We have a lot of ways to just not really care about the 1 damage it does when we teleport. There's almost no action compression in the whole list. Like, there's Hit and Run on Goblin, and then if you want to count it, there's Venom's Web Pull. And that's like it. It's very hard. Like, if you need to take a move action in order to get in range to attack, you don't really have a way to do that. Intrusions fixes that. Once you go stand your foes on Intrusions, it's pretty easy to just always be double tapping something relevant. And then we have a lot of ways that like the one damage doesn't matter too much to us. Like Lizard heals it, Venom can heal it, Mysterio doesn't often take damage, and then Kingpin can ignore it. There's just like a lot of good ways to ignore it. Oh, Nebula heals it too. Like I don't know. I think it's pretty good, and it forces a fight in the center, and it forces like a melee fight, and we're bruisers. We're not a gun line. So I think that really helps with that. Scoundrel seems like a weird pick as we are a fighting faction and it is a damage reduction thing. But what this does that's not really obvious is if you're just all standing on Scoundrels and you're just fighting your opponent, and so everybody has cover all the time, right? First of all, that's pretty rare for foes because we have so many size 3s. But second, it means that there's always a thing that Oscorp can roll against, right? Which means Oscorp being up every single time means we're going to slowly turn the tide against our opponent. Like their cover is worse than our cover. And that only works because this is only a good idea because we both have cover. So I have had really good success on Scoundrels, even against things that are really good on Scoundrels, like foes and criminal and webs. They're not foes, Wakanda, criminal and webs. All right, extracts. I think extracts is kind of where you want to pick your foes kind of in general. You really want struggle. Struggle for the cube is so good. Like the free damage doesn't matter as much to us. Like we have big hit point pools. We have lots of ways to replenish our hit points. We have lots of ways to move our hit points around and kind of keep our characters alive. And your opponent typically doesn't. And so that damage adds up really fast, and then you combine that with all our little ticky-tack effects and well-laid plans. If Struggle for the Cube comes up, and you can find a way to... You should be looking for a way to get Doc Ock in your roster so that you can play well-laid plans. It's really, really good. Insanely good. Right? Definitely look for Struggle for the Cube as much as possible. I'm currently playing Spider Infected. This is mostly because I'm really all in on well-laid plans, and I want more things going on. But also it's kind of funny because you can like trigger tricks and traps and trick or treat off spider infected moves, which I think is hilarious, and you can just like get free damage on people. So that's the reason why spider infected's in the roster. Also, like again, like it's a center cube there, and so if I'm going first and I think I can go pick it up without being punished, I won't put the Sinister Trap on the middle. But if I can't, I put the Sinister Trap in the middle, and then they'll have to go take damage. And then I'm playing Hammers. Hammers fixes our low strikes problem. I think we benefit from it more than most. I think it's just a good card. So overall, that's my roster. Let me know what you guys thought of this. Like, what would you play down below? Coming down the pipe, we have a Run the Length in the can, as well as some painting videos coming up on the channel. So make sure you subscribe to catch those. And I'll catch you next time, guys.